Hello, you tired little peeps. It's that time once again. So let's snuggle up fast, because tonight we're traveling. Back in time to walk the quiet fields and observe the slow, methodical rhythms of the agricultural calendar that governed the life of a Roman farmer. So if you are new to the channel or returning, liking the video significantly helps. Also, please let me know where you're listening in from and what time it is for you. Now get comfortable and let's begin. To understand the Roman world, one must not look first to the Senate House, nor to the great Colosseum, nor even to the marching legions that expanded the borders of the empire. To truly understand the Roman spirit, one must look down. One must look to the earth. Specifically, to the rich, dark, volcanic soil of Italy. Before Rome was a city of marble, it was a city of mud, timber, and grain. Before the Romans were conquerors, they were farmers. The very word for a wealthy person in Latin, locapuls, is derived from the phrase holding a place, implied to be land. Money, pecunia, finds its root in pecus, meaning a herd of cattle. The language itself remembers the smell of the turned earth and the warmth of the animal stall, even when the people had moved into crowded city apartments. Tonight, we are far away from the noise of the Subura. We are far from the shouting of the Forum. We are standing in the center of a rustic estate, a villa rustica in the heart of the Italian countryside. It is still dark. The air is cool and heavy with moisture. There is a profound silence here, a silence that is not empty, but full of potential. It is the silence of things growing, slowly, imperceptibly, in the dark. For the Roman farmer, the agricola, life is not measured in hours or minutes. There are no water clocks ticking away the frantic moments of a lawyer's speech here. Instead, time is measured in the grand, sweeping movements of the natural world. It is measured by the position of the sun as it arcs across the sky. It is measured by the phases of the moon, waxing and waning in its monthly dance. And perhaps most importantly, it is measured by the stars, the rising and setting of constellations that tell the farmer when the earth is ready to receive the seed, when the vine must be pruned, and when the harvest must be gathered in. This existence is a partnership. It is a quiet contract between the human hand and the will of nature. The Romans believed that the land possessed a spirit, a divine presence that required respect, order, and ritual. To farm was not merely to produce food. It was to bring order to the wilderness, to tame the chaotic forces of nature through discipline and hard work. Labor. Industria. These were the virtues of the field. Imagine, if you will, the texture of the soil underfoot. In this region, perhaps Campania or the Sabine Hills, the earth is heavy. It holds the rain. When you pick up a handful of this soil, it feels cool and crumbles slowly between your fingers. It smells of old roots, of minerals, of the decomposition of last year's leaves, which feed this year's crops. This is the fundamental reality of the Roman farmer. Everything begins here. The year is not a straight line for the farmer. It is a wheel, a great, slow-turning wheel, known as the annus. And as we stand here in the pre-dawn darkness, we can sense the weight of that wheel. We are about to embark on a journey through that year, month by month, season by season. We will examine the tools, the techniques, and the anxieties of those who coaxed life from the ground without the aid of machines, relying only on the strength of their arms, the sturdiness of their oxen, and the favor of the gods. But before the work begins, there is the waking. The Roman farmer rises before the sun. In the main house of the villa, the master, or perhaps the villicus, The overseer who manages the estate stirs from his sleep. The oil lamp is lit, casting a small, warm glow against the plaster walls. The flame flickers, illuminating the simple furniture. There is no desire to waste the daylight. The sun is the supreme clock, and to sleep while the sun is up is a luxury the true farmer cannot afford, and a vice he does not respect. Outside, the farmyard is beginning to wake as well. The sounds are soft and muffled. The lowing of an ox from the stable, the scratching of chickens in the dirt, the rustle of wind through the olive branches. These are the sounds of the res rustica, the country life. It is a predictable soundscape, one that brings a sense of deep security. Unlike the city, where the noise is chaotic and jarring, the screech of wagon wheels, the shouting of merchants, the barking of stray dogs, the sounds of the farm are rhythmic. They are the heartbeat of survival. The farmer steps out into the cool morning air. He wraps his cloak, his pallium, tighter around his shoulders against the chill. He looks up. The sky is a deep, bruised purple, transitioning to a pale gray in the east. He checks the weather. The weather is his constant companion and his oldest adversary. Is there a ring around the moon? Are the clouds banking in the west? Does the wind carry the scent of rain, or is it dry and biting? A Roman writer on agriculture, perhaps Cato or Varro, would remind us that the eyes of the farmer must always be on the sky. He is an astronomer of necessity. He knows that if the Pleiades set in cloudy weather, it foretells a rainy autumn. He knows that the behavior of the birds can predict a storm. He walks towards the equipment shed. Here lie the tools of his trade. They are simple, brutal, and effective. They are made of wood, elm, oak, and holm oak, and tipped with iron. There is the aerodrome, the plow. It is heavy. Its beam is curved, designed to bite into the earth and turn the sod. It is not a complex machine, but it is a masterpiece of function. It has been refined over centuries, its shape dictated by the soil itself. Beside it lie the falx, the curved sickle used for reaping grain and pruning vines. The iron blade is dull in the low light, but sharp to the touch. There are hoes, rakes, and spades. These are the extensions of the farmer's body. Through these tools, his will is transferred to the land. The farmer runs his hand along the wooden handle of a hoe. It is polished smooth by years of use, stained dark by sweat and oil. It feels solid. There is a comfort in the weight of it. This tool was perhaps used by his father and his father before him. In the Roman mind, tradition, the mos maiorum, is everything. One does not invent a new way of farming simply for the sake of novelty. One farms as the ancestors farmed because the ancestors survived. If the method was good enough to feed the generation that defeated Hannibal, it is good enough for today. The oxen are brought out. These are the engines of the Roman farm. They are massive beasts, prized for their strength and their placid temperament. The Roman writers advise that an ox should be chosen for its deep chest, its broad head, and its large, clear eyes. They are treated with care, sometimes better care than the slaves who work the fields. The farmer speaks to them in low tones. They know his voice. The wooden yoke is lifted and placed across their necks. It is heavy, but they accept it with a slow, resigned dipping of their heads. The leather straps are tightened. The smell of the animals, warm fur, musk, and hay, mixes with the crisp morning air. As the team moves towards the fields, the sun begins to breach the horizon. The first rays of light strike the tops of the cypress trees, turning them into flames of dark green and gold. The mist clinging to the valley floor begins to glow. This is the golden hour. The The world is being born again. The field awaits. It is a blank canvas of brown earth, waiting to be written upon by the plow. The Romans practiced a system of agriculture that was intensely thorough. They did not simply scratch the surface. They believed in the subactio, the thorough working of the soil. The land had to be tamed, broken down, pulverized until it was fine and receptive. A good farmer, they said, is one who leaves no clod of earth unturned. Let us walk with him to the edge of the field. The boundary is marked perhaps by a simple stone, a terminus. These boundary stones were sacred. To move one was a crime against the gods. The field is a defined space, a square of order carved out of the chaos. The furrows must be straight. The Romans loved straight lines, in their roads, in their aqueducts, and in their fields. A crooked furrow was a sign of a lazy mind and a weak character. The plowman must keep his eyes fixed on the goal, never looking back. The plow point enters the earth. There is a sound, a tearing, crunching sound, as the iron rind breaks the crust of the soil. It is a satisfying sound. The oxen heave, their muscles rippling under their thick hides. The earth turns over, exposing the dark, moist soil underneath to the air. The smell intensifies. It is the smell of fertility. This is the beginning of the cycle. But the agricultural year does not truly begin in the spring, as we might assume. For the Roman farmer, the cycle is continuous, but the preparation for the new year often begins in the autumn, with the sowing of the winter grain. However, to understand the flow of their lives, we must look at the calendar in its entirety. We must understand how the months were divided, not by arbitrary dates, but by the tasks that the earth demanded. There is a calmness in this repetition. Year after year, the same actions are performed, the same muscles are used, the same prayers are whispered to Ceres, the goddess of the harvest, and to Tellus, the earth mother. There is no anxiety about what to do. The land tells you what to do. If the ground is dry, you water. If the weeds are high, you hoe. If the grain is yellow, you harvest. The tyranny of choice is removed. There is only the duty to the task at hand. As the sun climbs higher, the temperature rises. The mist burns away, revealing the rolling hills of the Italian landscape. Patches of woodland, silvery olive groves, and the geometric patterns of vineyards stretch out into the distance. It is a landscape that has been shaped by human hands for centuries. It is a garden on a massive scale. In the coming parts of our journey, we will delve deep into this calendar. We will stand in the freezing mud of January, sharpening stakes by the fire. We will feel the blossom-scented breeze of April as the flocks are moved. We will sweat under the relentless heat of the July sun during the grain harvest, and we will smell the fermenting grapes in the cool shadows of October. We will look at the lives of the people, the free tenants, the slaves, the estate managers, and the specific techniques they used to grow the food that fueled an empire. But for now, simply watch the plow moving away from us, down the long, straight furrow. Watch the slow, rhythmic gait of the oxen. Step, step, step. The earth turns. The birds follow behind, looking for worms in the fresh soil. The sun warms your back. There is nowhere else you need to be. There is nothing else you need to do. We are here, in the quiet morning of the Roman world, and the work has just begun. The iron, the wood, and the winter watch. The plow rests. The fields are silent. We have moved from the golden promise of the dawn into the gray, hushed depth of January. In the Roman calendar, this is Ianuarius, named for Janus, the two-faced god of beginnings, gates, and doorways. He looks back at the year that has passed and forward to the year that is to come. And like the god, the Roman farmer in winter stands at a threshold. The frantic energy of the harvest is a distant memory, and the frantic energy of the spring sowing has not yet arrived. This is the time of the pause. But do not mistake a pause for idleness. Let us step out of the cold wind and into the shelter of the Villa Rustica. The wooden doors creak shut behind us, cutting off the bite of the tramontana wind blowing down from the Alps. Inside, the air is thick and warm. It smells of wood smoke, unwashed wool, and the savory scent of spelt porridge bubbling in a pot over the hearth. Winter in the Italian countryside is wet. The rains turn the clay roads into sucking quagmires of mud. The sky is often a low, flat sheet of slate gray. For the farmer, the fields are forbidden territory now. To walk on the sodden earth would be to damage it, to compact the soil when it needs to breathe and absorb the winter moisture. And so, the world of the farmer shrinks. It contracts from the wide horizons of the fields to the intimate enclosed spaces of the workshop and the barn. In this season, the advice of the great agricultural writer Columella echoes in the mind of the overseer. Whatever can be done under a roof should be done while the rains fall. We find ourselves in a long, low room attached to the main house. This is the workshop. It is here that the war against decay is fought. Farming is a battle against entropy. Handles break, blades dull, baskets unravel. Winter is the time to mend the armor. Watch the hands of an old laborer as he sits on a three-legged stool near the fire. He is holding a falx, a pruning hook. The iron is old, pitted with tiny scars from years of biting into vines and olive branches. He holds a whetstone, gray and smooth. With a rhythmic, mesmerizing motion, he draws the stone across the blade. Shk, shk, shk. The sound is repetitive, almost hypnotic. He does not rush. He tests the edge with his thumb, feels the microscopic burr on the metal, and continues. There is no urgency, only the desire for perfection. A dull blade in the spring means a ragged cut on the vine, and a ragged cut invites disease. The health of the future harvest depends on the patience of this winter afternoon. Next to him, another worker is dealing with wood. He is fashioning new handles for the hoes and rakes. He has a piece of ash wood, seasoned and dry. He uses a draw knife to shave away the bark and shape the shaft. The wood shavings curl up and fall to the floor in soft, blonde piles. The smell of the cut wood is sharp and clean, cutting through the smoke. He checks the balance of the handle. It must feel like an extension of the arm. If it is too thick, it will tire the hand. If too thin, it will snap under the weight of the clay. He sands it down, perhaps using a rough piece of shark skin or simply a handful of gritty sand and a leather cloth, until the wood is smooth as glass. In the corner, there is a pile of willow wands and flexible brambles gathered from the riverbanks before the heavy rains set in. This is the raw material for basketry. Every Roman farm needs baskets. Baskets for carrying manure, baskets for holding grain, baskets for harvesting grapes, baskets for pressing cheese. The weaving of baskets is a task that fills the long winter evenings. It requires nimble fingers, but allows the mind to wander, or the men to tell stories. Watch the process. It starts with the base, the ribs radiating out like the spokes of a wheel. Then, the weaver takes a long, pliable willow wand and begins to weave it in and out, over and under. The structure grows, ring by ring. The tension must be consistent. The wicker creaks softly as it is bent into shape. It is a quiet, satisfying architecture. A good basket is tight enough to hold grain, but breathable enough to prevent rot. It is a vessel of pure utility, born from the wild plants of the ditch. But the winter is not entirely indoor work. There are days when the rain stops and the sky clears to a piercing, cold blue. On these days, the farmer wraps his heavy wool cloak around him, pulls his boots on, and heads to the olive groves. The olive harvest may be finishing now, the last of the black, oily fruit knocked from the high branches. But the main task is inspection. The farmer walks the rows of trees. These trees are ancient beings. Their trunks are gnarled and twisted, looking like petrified torrents of lava. They are the survivors, but they need care. The farmer checks for dead wood, for branches broken by the wind. He clears away the suckers, the energetic, useless shoots springing up from the base of the trunk that sap the tree's strength. And then there is the water. Water is the lifeblood of the farm, but in winter, it is a threat. Standing water rots the roots of the grain. It turns the pasture into a swamp. So the farmer becomes a hydraulic engineer. He takes a spade and walks the drainage ditches, the fossae. These channels are the veins of the field. They must be kept clear. He finds a spot where dead leaves and mud have created a dam. The water is backing up, pooling in a low spot of the wheat field. He steps into the ditch. The water is freezing. With steady, heavy scoops, he clears the blockage. The mud is heavy, sucking at the spade. He flings the spoil up onto the bank. Once the obstruction is gone, the water begins to flow again. It rushes with a happy, gurgling sound, draining away from the precious crop. He watches it for a moment, satisfied. He has restored the circulation of the land. Back in the animal stalls, the atmosphere is cozy. The Roman farmer knows that his oxen are his most valuable capital. In winter, they are kept indoors. The stables are cleaned daily. The manure is not waste. It is gold. It is carefully collected and piled to rot down into fertilizer. The bedding is refreshed with straw or fern leaves. The animals are fed on dry rations, hay, chaff, and sometimes mast, acorns, gathered from the forests. The farmer walks down the line of stalls, checking each animal. He runs his hand over their flanks. Are they losing weight? Is their coat glossy? He checks their hooves for cracks or rot caused by the damp. He speaks to them. The steam rises from the animals' bodies, creating a warm, misty microclimate in the barn. The sound of their rhythmic chewing is a steady baseline to the winter days. Food preservation is also a key theme of these months. The cellar, the kella, is the heart of the farm's security. Here, in the cool dark, hang the cured meats, sausages, hams, bacon, smoking gently or drying in the salt air. The shelves are lined with jars of honey, pickled olives, and cheese. The overseer checks the inventory. Is there enough to last until the first spring vegetables? Is the grain in the silo dry and free of weevils? To open a jar of preserved figs in the dead of winter is to taste the captured sunlight of the previous summer. There is a superstition in these dark months too. The Romans were a deeply religious people, seeing spirits in every corner of the landscape. Winter was a time to propitiate the dark, chthonic gods. The Feast of the Compitalia was celebrated in winter, a festival at the crossroads. The farmers would hang woolen dolls at the intersections of paths, offerings to the lares, the guardian spirits of the fields. They believed these spirits watched over the boundaries. It was a time of unease, when the nights were long and the shadows stretched out, and these small rituals provided a sense of control, a way to bargain with the unseen forces for safety, and a return of the sun. As the sun sets early, dipping below the hills in the mid-afternoon, the work ceases. The lamp is lit again. The household gathers. This is the time for repair of the self. A simple meal is shared, perhaps a stew of beans and bacon with a piece of hard cheese and a cup of watered-down wine. The heat of the fire is a luxury. They sit close to it, the light dancing on their faces. Outside, the frost begins to settle. It coats the plow left under the shed in a layer of white crystals. It hardens the mud in the yard. The owl hoots from the roof tiles. The world is asleep, locked in the cold embrace of January. But inside the seed, buried deep in the dark furrow, and inside the workshop where the whetstone sings against the iron, the preparation for life continues. The farmer sleeps, but his tools are sharp, his baskets are woven, and his ditches are clear. He is ready for the earth to wake up. The breath of the west wind and the sacred stone. The silence of winter does not break all at once. It dissolves slowly, like morning mist under the rising sun. We are moving now into Februarius, the month of purification. The heavy gray clouds of January begin to lift, revealing patches of sky that are a softer, paler blue. The air changes texture. It is no longer the biting, static cold of the deep freeze. It carries a new current, a movement. This is the arrival of Favonius, the west wind. To the Roman farmer, this wind is not merely a meteorological event. It is a biological signal. It is the breath of the world returning to life. Pliny the Elder, the great naturalist, wrote that Favonius opens the earth. It is a gentle wind, moist and warming, that whispers through the dormant valleys, telling the sap that it is time to rise. Walk with the farmer now. He leaves the workshop, blinking in the brighter light. The ground underfoot is changing. The frost has heaved the soil, breaking up the clods, making it friable and soft. The mud is beginning to dry. The smell of the air is distinct. It is the scent of wet bark drying in the sun, of damp moss, and the faint, sweet promise of green things pushing through the leaf litter. The primary task of this season is one of delicate violence, pruning. We head to the vineyard, the vinea. The vines are skeletal, twisted shapes clinging to their elms or trellises. They look dead, brittle and brown. But the farmer knows that inside, the life force is building pressure. If left unchecked, the vine will produce a chaotic tangle of leaves and only a few small, sour grapes. To produce wine, the vine must be disciplined. The pruner enters the rows. This is skilled work, often reserved for the most experienced slaves or the master himself. He holds the falx venatoria, the vine dresser's knife. It is a complex tool, almost strange in appearance, with a curved blade, a hook, a pick, and a hatchet edge all in one. It is the Swiss army knife of the ancient world. Listen to the sound of the work. Snip, crack, snap. It is a crisp, clean sound. The pruner must make thousands of decisions. Which branch is the wood of the year that will bear fruit? Which is the useless water shoot that must be removed? He cuts away the dead wood, the weak growth. He leaves only the strongest canes, the ones with the most potential. He is sculpting the future harvest. The cuts must be smooth and slanted, so that the rain runs off and does not rot the wood. It is a meditation in geometry and biology. The ground beneath the vines becomes littered with the severed branches, which will later be gathered for kindling. As the days of February wane, a solemn hush falls over the countryside. It is the 23rd of the month, the festival of the Terminalia. In a world without GPS, without wire fences, and without digital land registries, the boundary was everything. The terminus. It was the line where mine ended and yours began. But for the Romans, this was not just a legal line, it was a sacred one. The boundary stone was a god, Terminus, who refused to yield even to Jupiter. Imagine the scene at the edge of the field, where the farmer's land meets his neighbor's. It is early morning. The air is still cool. The two farmers meet at the stone. They are neighbors, perhaps friends, perhaps rivals. But today, they are united in ritual. They do not shake hands. They build an altar. The old stone, moss-covered and sunk deep into the earth, is cleaned. They adorn it with garlands of fresh flowers, white and yellow blooms gathered from the awakening meadows. A small fire is kindled on a temporary altar. The wood crackles. The smoke rises, a thin gray column connecting earth and sky. The farmers offer simple gifts, a handful of grain, a honeycomb dripping with the sweetness of last summer, a splash of wine. In wealthier times, a lamb or a sucking pig might be sacrificed, its blood staining the stone, feeding the spirit of the boundary. But the essence of the ritual is peace. It is a reaffirmation of order. This is my space, that is your space, and between us there is respect. They share a meal there, right on the boundary line. They talk of the winter past, of the condition of the wheat, of the price of oil in the market. It is a moment of community woven into the fabric of the solitary farming life. The terminalia ensures that the year begins without dispute, and then the calendar turns. Martius. March. This is the month of Mars. We think of Mars as the god of war, the blood-soaked deity of the legions, and he is. But in the ancient rustic religion, Mars was first a protector of the fields. He was the force that guarded the grain from disease, from storms, and from wild beasts. He was the energy of spring, explosive, potent, and dangerous if not respected. With March, the pace quickens. The quiet frontier skills mentioned in our introduction are now put to the test. The heavy plows are brought out again. The soil, now fully thawed and dried by the winds, must be broken for the spring planting. This is the time to sow the crops that do not overwinter: the millet, the chickpeas, the lentils, and the panic grass. Watch the sower. He walks the field with a steady rhythmic stride. He carries a basket of seeds on his left arm. His right hand dips in, grabs a handful, and casts it in a wide, sweeping arc. Swish, swish. The seeds hit the ground with a sound like light rain. He must be consistent. If he throws too thick, the plants will choke each other. If he throws too thin, he wastes the land. He times his throw with his step. Left foot, throw. Right foot, dip. Left foot, throw. It is a dance as old as agriculture itself. In the orchard, another delicate operation is taking place: grafting. This is the magic of the Roman farmer. He takes a cutting, a scion, from a tree known for its sweet apples or juicy pears. He approaches a wild stock, a strong but bitter tree. With his knife, he makes a careful incision in the bark of the host. He inserts the cutting. He binds the wound with clay and cloth. It seems impossible, fusing two different lives into one. But the Roman farmer knows that if the cut is clean and the binding is tight, the sap of the wild tree will flow into the sweet cutting. The wild strength will support the refined fruit. It is a triumph of art over nature. The writer Virgil describes this with wonder. The tree marvels at its new leaves and fruits that are not its own. The days are getting longer now. The sun has real warmth. The birds have returned, the swallows darting in and out of the barn eaves, the storks nesting on the rooftops. The noise of the farm increases. The lambs born in the winter are finding their legs, bleeding in the pasture. The bees are venturing out from their hives, groggy but hungry, looking for the first rosemary blossoms. The farmer sheds his heavy winter cloak. He works in his tunic now, the wool scratching his skin, his arms beginning to tan. He is tired at the end of the day, a physical tiredness that is different from the lethargy of winter. It is the exhaustion of action. As the sun sets on a March evening, the sky is a riot of pink and orange. The farmer stands by the gate, looking out over his domain. The vines are pruned and orderly. The boundary stone is honored. The spring seeds are in the ground. The trees are grafted. The wheel of the year has turned a quarter. The waiting is over. The growing has begun. The earth is no longer sleeping. It is breathing, deep and rhythmic, and the farmer must match his breath to it. The green ocean and the shepherd's fire. The world has turned green, not just the timid, pale green of early shoots, but a deep, vibrant, confident emerald. We have arrived in Aprilis. The etymology of the month's name is debated by scholars, but for the farmer, the meaning is clear. It comes from aperire, to open. The buds open, the flowers open, the earth opens its pores to drink the spring rains. The silence of winter and the brisk activity of March have been replaced by a hum. It is the hum of growth. If you were to lie down in the middle of a Roman wheat field in April, pressing your ear to the damp ground, you might almost imagine you could hear the stalks stretching towards the sun. The wheat, the frumentum, is now knee-high. It ripples in the wind like the surface of a green sea. It is a hypnotic sight, waves of grain undulating under the passing clouds. But this lushness brings a new challenge. The crops are not the only things that love the April rain and the strengthening sun. The weeds have arrived, and so the war of the hoe begins again. This is the seridio, the weeding. It is a task of infinite patience. Imagine the farmer and his laborers moving slowly through the rows of beans or grain. The ground is soft, yielding easily to the iron blade of the hoe. They must be surgically precise. They must cut the root of the weed without damaging the delicate root systems of the crop. It is a repetitive motion. Strike, pull, turn. Strike, pull, turn. They move in a line, a human machine clearing the chaos from the order. There is a meditative quality to weeding. The mind empties. There is only the green plant to be saved and the intruder to be removed. The smell of the disrupted earth mixes with the scent of crushed wild mint and wild garlic. The sun is warm on the back of the neck, but the air is still fresh enough that the work is not yet a burden. It is simply a duty. While the arable fields demand weeding, the vineyard demands guidance. The vines we pruned in February have now burst forth with vigorous new shoots. They are reaching out, searching for something to hold. In the Roman style of viticulture, vines were often married to trees, usually elms or poplars planted specifically for this purpose. The tree provides the strength, the vine provides the fruit. Now the farmer must act as the matchmaker. He walks the rows with bundles of willow withes or soaked broom stalks tucked into his belt. He takes the tender, wandering shoot of the vine and gently presses it against the branch of the elm. He ties it, not too tight. The vine must have room to grow thick, but not too loose, or the wind will tear it away. He is training the plant. He is teaching it where to go. Climb here, his hands say. Reach for the sun here. It is a gentle discipline. The vineyard in April is a place of rustling leaves and filtered light, a cathedral of green arches being built one tie at a time. But April is not just for the plants. It is the month of the animals, specifically the sheep. For the Roman farmer, sheep were essential. They provided wool for clothing, milk for cheese, and manure for the fields. They were the gentle, bleeding heart of the farm's economy. On the 21st of April, The farm undergoes a transformation. This is the Parilia, the festival of pails, the deity of shepherds and flocks. It is a day of purification, a day to wash away the accumulated grime and bad luck of the winter. The preparation begins at dawn. The sheep pens and stables are swept clean. Every scrap of old straw is removed. The stone floors are washed with water and scrubbed with stiff brooms made of birch twigs. Fresh boughs of laurel and rosemary are hung from the rafters, filling the air with their sharp, piney scent. Then comes the fire. But this is not a fire for warmth or cooking. It is a ritual fire. The farmer gathers heaps of straw, beanstalks, and laurel branches. He arranges them in a line. As the sun begins to set, painting the sky in hues of violet and rose, the fires are lit. The smoke is thick and white. It billows up, carrying the scent of burning herbs. The shepherd drives the flock towards the smoke. The sheep, nervous and bleeding, are urged to run through the edges of the fire. They are not burned, but the smoke washes over them. It is believed to kill parasites, to ward off disease, to create a barrier against wolves and evil spirits. The farmer himself leaps over the flames 3 times. It is a moment of athletic joy, a release of tension. "Purify my sheep, protect my fold," he chants. After the fire, there is a feast, but it is a rustic feast, eaten sitting on the ground or on benches of turf. They drink sapa, a syrup of boiled grape juice mixed with milk. They eat millet cakes. This is the food of the poor, the food of the earth. But tonight, it tastes like the nectar of the gods. The connection between the man, the animal, and the land is celebrated. The shepherd knows his sheep by name. He knows which ewe is a good mother, which ram is aggressive, which lamb is weak. They are not units of production. They are fellow travelers on the land. As April fades, the weather settles. The unpredictable showers become less frequent. The sky deepens into a harder, clearer blue. The softness of spring is beginning to harden into the certainty of summer. The olive trees are now showing their flowers. Tiny, white, star-shaped blossoms that dust the groves like a light snowfall. The farmer watches them anxiously. If a heavy rain comes now, it could knock the blossoms off, destroying the crop before it has even begun. He watches the sky. He prays to Jupiter for calm weather. The bees are frantic with activity now. The air in the orchard vibrates with their wings. To the Roman farmer, bees were models of ideal citizenship. Loyal, hard-working, communal. Pliny wrote of them with immense respect. The farmer checks the hives, woven from wicker or cork. He listens to the hum. A strong, deep hum means the colony is healthy. A high, patchy whine might mean the queen is dead or the hive is sick. He plants thyme and clover near the hives, knowing that the flavor of the honey depends on the flowers the bees visit. He is curating the landscape to flavor his food. Night falls later now. The evenings are long and pleasant. The frogs begin their chorus in the drainage ditches, a rhythmic croak, croak, croak that echoes across the valley. It is a lullaby for the tired worker. The farmer sits on the porch of the villa, watching the fireflies, the cicindulae, dancing over the wheat fields. They are like wandering stars, mirroring the constellations above. The urgency of the sowing is done. The anxiety of the frost is past. Now comes the time of watching, of tending, of waiting. The grain is growing. The grapes are forming. The lambs are fattening. The machine of nature is running at full speed, and the farmer is the mechanic who keeps it oiled with his sweat and his care. He goes to bed with the smell of wood smoke and sheep's wool still on his skin. He sleeps deeply, for he knows that tomorrow brings a new task. The sun is getting stronger. The quiet frontier is about to heat up. The golden fleece and the walking of the fields. The air has changed again. Can you feel it? The moisture has evaporated from the breeze. The wind that brushes against your face is no longer cool. It is tepid, carrying the weight of the coming summer. We have entered Maius, the month of May. In the Roman mind, this was a month of caution, a time when the veil between the living and the dead was thin. But for the farmer, it is the month when the green ocean begins to turn. Look at the fields. The emerald green of the wheat is fading. It is bleaching out, turning a pale, dusty yellow. The stalks are hardening. The ears of grain are filling with starch, swelling in the heat. The landscape is losing its soft edges. The shadows are becoming sharper, darker, carved out by a sun that climbs higher and burns brighter each day. Before the great drama of the grain harvest, there is the prelude, the phanesia, the hay harvest. The meadows, left to grow wild with grass and clover, are now waist-high. This grass is the winter fuel for the oxen. It is the energy that will pull the plow next January, growing right now in the May sunshine. The mowers enter the meadow. They carry the falx faenaria, the long hay scythe. This is a different tool from the heavy pruning hook. It has a long, sweeping blade, thin and sharp as a razor. The motion of mowing is a full-body rhythm. It comes from the hips. Watch the mower. He plants his feet wide. He swings the scythe back, twisting his torso, and then releases it in a long, smooth arc close to the ground. Swish. The grass sighs as it falls. Swish. Another swath is laid low. The sound is rhythmic, like the breathing of the field itself. The smell is intoxicating, the sweet, heavy scent of cut grass, clover, and wildflowers wilting in the sun. It is a smell that triggers a primal memory of summer in anyone who has ever lived near a farm. The mowers work in a line, stepping forward in unison. They do not talk. They save their breath for the swing. The sun beats down on their shoulders. They stop only to wet their blades. The clink, clink, clink of the stone against the metal rings out across the silent meadow, answering the call of the cicadas which are just beginning to wake up in the trees. Once the grass is cut, it must dry. It is turned with wooden pitchforks, tossed into the air to let the sun bake the moisture out of it. If it is stored wet, it will rot or even catch fire from the heat of decomposition. So the farmer watches the sky. A rainstorm now would ruin the fodder. He needs dry, hot days. When the hay is crisp and sweet-smelling, it is raked into stacks, looking like golden beehives dotting the green stubble. While the meadows are being shorn, so too are the beasts. The sheep, which we purified in the smoke of April, are now suffering under the weight of their winter coats. The heat is rising, and the heavy wool is a burden. It is time for the tonsura, the shearing. The sheep are brought into the shade of a large oak tree or a purpose-built shed. They are cast onto their backs, held gently between the shearer's knees. The shearers use iron shears, spring-loaded, clicking rapidly. Snip, snip, snip. The fleece comes away in one piece, a heavy, oily blanket of white cloud. The sheep looks startled, suddenly small and naked, pink-skinned and vulnerable. But as it scrambles to its feet and trots back to the pasture, there is a lightness in its step. It is relieved. The wool is gathered, washed in the stream to remove the lanolin, and then dried. This wool will be spun by the women of the household in the coming winter evenings, closing yet another loop in the self-sufficient circle of the farm. But the most critical event of May is not agricultural work, but agricultural prayer. The crops are at their most vulnerable. They are tall, heavy with grain, but not yet ripe. A hailstorm, a blight, a sudden drought, any of these could destroy a year's work in an hour. The farmer feels this tension. He needs insurance. He needs the ambarvalia. The word ambarvalia comes from ambire, to go around, and arvum, field. It is the ritual of walking the fields. It is a solemn procession to define the sacred space of the farm and seal it against harm. Imagine the procession forming in the courtyard. The master of the estate leads it. His head is covered with a fold of his toga. Behind him come his family, the slaves and the free laborers. They are all dressed in white. They are silent. This is not a festival of noise. It is a festival of focus. They walk the perimeter of the property. They follow the boundary stones we visited in February. They walk along the edge of the woods, along the banks of the stream, along the dusty track that leads to the main road. They are drawing a magic circle with their feet. At the center of the procession are the victims: a pig, Sus, a sheep, Ovis, and a bull, Taurus. Together, they form the Suavitaurilia, the ultimate Roman sacrifice. These animals are garlanded with ribbons and flowers. They are led 3 times around the fields. The procession moves slowly. The only sounds are the shuffling of sandals on the dirt, the lowing of the bull, and the rustle of the wind in the drying wheat. At the end of the 3rd circuit, the procession stops. The farmer stands before the altar. He raises his hands to the sky and recites the ancient prayer to Mars. Not Mars the war god, but Mars the agricultural guardian. Listen to the words echoing across the centuries. Father Mars, I pray and beseech thee that thou be gracious and merciful to me, my house and my household, that thou keep away, ward off, and remove sickness, seen and unseen, barrenness and destruction, ruin and unseasonable influence. He asks for the grain to grow tall. He asks for the shepherds and the flocks to be safe. It is a humble request from a small man to a great power. The sacrifice is made. The smoke rises. The farmer watches it. If it rises straight up, the gods are listening. The circle is sealed. The farm is a fortress protected by divine favor. As May turns to June, the heat intensifies. The quiet frontier is shimmering in the haze. The work shifts to the preparation for the main event, the grain harvest. The area, the threshing floor, must be prepared. This is a circular space, usually near the house, open to the wind. It must be hard as rock and perfectly smooth. Weeds or cracks would hide the grain or let the precious seeds fall into the dirt. The farmer and his men clear the ground. They dig up the earth and mix it with amurca, the bitter, watery dregs left over from pressing olive oil. The Romans threw nothing away. This acidic fluid acts as a herbicide and a pesticide. It kills the weeds and repels the ants and mice that would steal the harvest. They pour the mixture onto the ground and pound it. They use heavy wooden beetles, thumping the earth until it is packed tight. Thump, thump, thump. They roll it with a large cylindrical stone. The surface becomes smooth, hard, and clean. It gleams in the sun. It is a waiting stage, an empty dance floor waiting for the dancers. In the granaries, the horea, the bins are swept out. The walls are checked for cracks. The smell of last year's dusty grain is swept away to make room for the fresh, sweet scent of the new yield. The farmer walks into the wheat field one last time before the reapers arrive. He pulls a single stalk. He rubs the ear between his palms. The chaff falls away, leaving the kernels in his hand. He bites one. It is hard. It cracks between his teeth. It is ready. The waiting is over. The green ocean is now a sea of gold. The cicadas are screaming in the heat. The sun is a white-hot disk in the sky. The tools are sharp. The baskets are ready. The year has been leading to this moment. The harvest is here, the sun's anvil and the golden tide. The sun is no longer just a source of light. It is a weight. It presses down on the shoulders, the eyelids, the very earth itself. We have reached Junius and Julius, the high summer. The air shimmers with heat haze, distorting the horizon. The distant hills look like they are floating in a pool of quicksilver. The green ocean of April has vanished. In its place stands a golden tide. The wheat is dry, brittle, and bowed under the weight of its own kernels. It rustles with a dry, whispering sound when the hot wind blows, like millions of tiny paper scrolls rubbing together. This is the Messies, the harvest. The farmhouse wakes even earlier than usual. The stars are still bright when the reapers assemble in the courtyard. There is a nervous energy. The wheat must be cut now. If they wait, the kernels might fall out of the husks and be lost to the birds and the mice. If a summer storm breaks, the crop could be flattened. The urgency is silent but palpable. They drink a quick cup of water, perhaps flavored with a splash of vinegar, the famous Roman drink known as pasca. It is sharp, acidic, and incredibly refreshing. It cuts the thirst before the thirst even begins. They march to the fields. The reapers carry the falx massoria. This is a balanced, curved sickle with a serrated edge. Unlike the smooth blade of the grass scythe, the grain sickle has tiny teeth, like a saw. It is designed to bite into the tough, hollow stalks of the wheat. The work begins as soon as the light is strong enough to see the crop. The reapers line up at the edge of the field. They do not work alone. They work in a phalanx. Watch the motion. It is different from mowing hay. The reaper steps forward with his left leg. With his left hand, he grabs a bunch of wheat stalks, a manipulus. He pulls them slightly towards him. With his right hand, he brings the sickle around. Krr-rar-itch. The serrated blade tears through the straw. The sound is dry and tearing. It is the sound of bread being born. He does not throw the cut grain on the ground. He gently lays the handful down behind him. Step, grab, cut, lay, step, grab, cut, lay. The rhythm is slower than mowing, more deliberate. The sun begins to climb, the shadows shorten, the sweat begins to flow. It runs down their foreheads, stinging their eyes. It soaks their tunics. The dust from the dry wheat rises in a golden cloud, sticking to their wet skin. They are coated in the land. They look like statues made of clay and gold. The Roman farmer often cut the grain high, just under the ears, leaving the long straw standing in the field. This straw would be cut later for thatch or bedding, or burned to fertilize the soil. This method saved weight. They only carried the heavy heads of grain to the threshing floor. As the morning wears on, the heat becomes a physical presence. It radiates up from the dry ground. The cicadas are screaming now, a deafening, electric buzz that seems to vibrate inside your skull. It is the soundtrack of the Mediterranean summer. And then, the 6th hour arrives. Noon. In the modern world, we power through. We work under artificial lights, ignoring the position of the sun. The Romans were wiser. They knew that to fight the noon sun was foolish. This is the time of the meridiatio, the midday rest. The origin of the word siesta comes from sexta, 6th hour. The work stops. The silence rushes back in to fill the space left by the sickles. The reapers retreat to the shade of a large fig tree or the overhang of a rock. They collapse onto the ground. The relief is instantaneous. To lie in the cool shadow after hours in the blinding glare is a profound pleasure. They eat a simple lunch: bread, onions, olives, cheese. They pass the skin of pasca. The vinegar water tastes like life itself, and then they sleep. Imagine lying there with them. The ground is hard, but your body is so tired it feels like a featherbed. You close your eyes. The world turns orange behind your eyelids. You can smell the dry grass, the sweat, the fig leaves. The drone of the bees becomes a lullaby. For an hour or two, the farm stops. The world holds its breath in the heat. When the sun begins to slide down the western sky, losing some of its ferocity, the work resumes. The energy is different now. The end of the day is in sight. The piles of cut grain, the sheaves, are gathered. Slaves or farmhands bring baskets or wooden sledges. The sheaves are loaded up. The oxen are brought out, moving slowly, their tails swishing at the flies. The load is heavy. The wheels of the cart creak under the weight of the harvest. They head towards the area, the threshing floor we prepared in the last chapter. That hard, smooth circle of earth is now the destination. The sheaves are piled up in the center, a growing mountain of food. As the sun sets, the field looks different. It is shorn. The tall, waving ocean is gone. In its place is a stubble field, spiky and yellow. It looks raw, exposed. But there is a sense of safety. The grain is no longer out there, vulnerable to the wind and the hail. It is gathered. It is close to the house. The reapers walk back to the villa. Their muscles ache with a deep, throbbing rhythm. Their skin is scratched by the straw. They are covered in chaff. But they are singing. It is a rough, simple song, perhaps a bawdy joke about a girl in the village or a chant to Ceres. The evening meal is larger tonight. There is more wine. The master is pleased. The harvest is in. But the work is not done. The grain is safe, yes, but it is locked away. It is trapped inside the hard husk, the chaff. The kernel cannot be eaten until it is freed. The next stage of the battle is about to begin. The separation of the wheat from the chaff. The night air is still warm. The stones of the farmhouse radiate the heat they absorbed all day. The farmer stands by the threshing floor, looking at the dark mound of sheaves silhouetted against the starry sky. He picks up a single stalk that fell from the cart. He breaks the head open and pops a kernel into his mouth. It is hard as a rock. It will make good flour. It will make good bread. He looks up at the constellation of the booties, the herdsmen, shining brightly. The cosmic wheel keeps turning. The cutting is over. The crushing is about to begin. The circle of dust and the wind's judgment. We are standing now in the center of the area, that hard-packed, sun-baked circle of earth we prepared earlier. The air is filled with a fine, golden mist. It is dust. It hangs in the shafts of sunlight like suspended gold. The harvest has been brought in. The sheaves of wheat are untied and spread out in a thick carpet over the floor. To the untrained eye, it looks like a mess of straw and heads. But inside this chaotic pile lies the sustenance of the family for the coming year. The task now is tritura, threshing. We must crush the head to release the seed. There is a hypnotic quality to this work. It is circular. It is endless. The farmer brings out the mules or the oxen. They are harnessed not to a cart, but to a strange, heavy device called a tribulum. This is the threshing sledge. Imagine a heavy wooden board, like a large door, curved slightly at the front like a sleigh. But underneath, embedded in the wood, are rows of sharp flint stones or iron teeth. A driver stands or sits on the sledge. His weight drives the flint teeth down into the straw. He flicks the reins. Hiya! Hiya! The animals begin to walk. Around and around the circle they go. The sledge drags behind them, bumping and grinding over the wheat. Crunch, crunch, crunch. The sound is loud, a constant grinding of wood against dry stalk. The straw is cut and bruised. The ears of wheat are shattered. The kernels are shaken loose from their husks. For the rider on the sledge, the world becomes a blur of yellow. The motion is rocking, repetitive. The heat beats down. The dust rises, coating the eyebrows, the eyelashes, the skin. It gets into the nose, smelling of dry earth and warm bread. The animals plod on, their hooves adding to the crushing action. They know the routine. They don't need much guidance. They just walk the circle, their heads bobbing in time. Every so often, the work stops. Men with wooden forks step in to turn the straw over, bringing the unthreshed bottom layer to the top. Then the sledge starts again. It is a slow, grinding dance. By the afternoon, the floor is covered in a mixture of broken straw, loose chaff, the light papery skins of the grain, and the heavy, hard kernels of wheat. The job is half done. The grain is free, but it is buried in trash. Now we need the partner of the harvest, the wind. This is the process of ventilatio, winnowing. It is one of the most beautiful sights in the agricultural year. It requires a specific weather condition, a steady, gentle breeze. Too strong, and it blows the grain away. Too weak, and it doesn't separate the chaff. The farmer wets his finger and holds it up. He feels the cool touch of air coming from the west. It is time. The winnowers take up their tool, the ventilabrum. It is a shallow wooden shovel or a basket shaped like a scallop shell. They dig into the mixture on the floor. They lift a heavy scoop. And then, with a graceful upward toss, they fling it into the air. Physics takes over. The heavy grain, dense and round, flies up and falls straight back down in a shower. Pat, 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 pat. It lands in a growing pile. But the chaff, the light, useless husks and the dust, is caught by the breeze. It floats. It dances on the wind, drifting away to the side, forming a separate drift of pale yellow waste. Watch the rhythm. Scoop, toss, watch. Scoop, toss, watch. It looks like a fountain of gold. The sun catches the flying kernels, making them sparkle. The chaff clouds the air downwind, glittering like fairy dust. The separation is clean and absolute. Substance falls. Shadow flies away. The winnowers work until their arms burn. They work until the sun begins to set, painting the sky in violet and indigo. The pile of clean grain grows higher. It is a pyramid of life. It is smooth, cool to the touch. If you plunge your hand into it, the kernels flow like water around your fingers. This is pure energy. This is the sun's heat, captured and materialized. The chaff pile is swept away. It will be used to stuff mattresses, making a rustling, fragrant bed for the weary, or mixed into mud to make bricks. Nothing is wasted. As the twilight deepens, the work finishes. The winnowing shovels are put away. The tribulum is leaned against the barn wall. The oxen are led to water, their muzzles covered in dust. The farmer stands before the great pile of grain. He is exhausted. His eyes are red from the dust. His skin itches. But he feels a profound sense of peace. The crop is no longer a promise. It is a reality. It is here, under his hand. He takes a measure, a modius, and begins to fill sacks or baskets. The grain must be moved inside, to the granarium, before the dew falls. Moisture is the enemy now. Inside the granary, the air is cool and dry. The grain is poured into large bins or ceramic jars called dolia. The sound of the pouring grain is like rain on a roof, a rushing, soothing noise. Shh. The jar fills up. A lid is placed on top. This is the bank vault of the ancient world. When the jars are full, the farmer is rich. Not in coins, which can be devalued or stolen, but in the fundamental currency of survival. Outside, the area is empty again. The dust settles. The wind dies down, its job done. The moon rises, illuminating the bare circle of earth. It looks like a stage after the actors have left. The farm quiets down. The only sound is the scratching of the crickets and the occasional settling of the grain in the jars, a tiny tick as the kernels shift. The golden tide has been tamed, sorted, and stored. Tonight, the sleep of the household will be deep. It is the sleep of security. The barn is full. The winter can come, but the agricultural year does not stop for a celebration. Even as the grain is stored, the grapes on the vines are swelling, turning from hard green knots into heavy purple clusters. The sun is still hot. The next chapter of the story is already ripening on the vine. The purple hands and the song of the vat. The light has softened. The harsh vertical glare of July has tilted into the golden slanted light of late August and September. We have entered the time of the Vendimia, the vintage. If the grain harvest was a battle against the heat, the grape harvest is a festival. The air in the valley is no longer dry and dusty. It is heavy, sweet, and thick with the scent of ripening fruit. Walk with the farmer into the vineyard. The vines, which we tied so carefully in the spring, are now walls of green leaves. But hidden beneath that canopy hang the treasures, heavy, tight clusters of grapes. Some are a translucent green, catching the sunlight like glass beads. Others are deep purple, almost black, covered in a fine, dusty bloom, the pruina, that protects the skin. The silence of the farm is broken now, not by the grinding of the threshing sledge, but by laughter. The vintage is a communal affair. Men, women, and children move through the rows. They carry small wicker baskets. Watch the hands of a picker. He does not grab and tear. He supports the heavy bunch with one hand, cradling it like a fragile bird. With the other, he uses a small curved knife to snip the stem. Snip. The bunch falls gently into his palm. He checks it. Any rotten berries are plucked out and thrown away. Only the perfect fruit goes into the basket. The baskets are emptied into larger panniers, strapped to the backs of donkeys or piled into ox carts. The destination is the torcularium, the press room. As the carts trundle towards the farm buildings, a trail of sticky juice marks their path on the dust. Wasps and bees hover in the air, drunk on the sugar. We enter the torcularium. It is a cool, stone-walled room, dim after the brightness of the fields. But the smell hits you instantly. It is the smell of crushed sugar, of yeast, of the earth itself turning into liquid. The grapes are dumped into the lacus or the treading vat. This is a large rectangular tank built of masonry and lined with waterproof plaster. And now, the calcatories, the treaders, climb in. This is the heartbeat of the vintage. The treaders are barefoot. They wash their feet carefully before entering. They step onto the mountain of grapes. They link arms to keep their balance on the slippery skins. And then they begin to march. Squelch, splash, squelch, splash. It is a rhythm older than history. They lift their knees high. They stomp down. The skins burst. The juice, the mustum, spurts out. It is cool and sticky. It stains their legs purple up to the knees. They look like they are wearing boots made of wine. To keep the rhythm, to keep the energy up, they sing. It is a chant, a seliuma, set to the beat of their feet. The sound echoes off the stone walls. The juice flows out of a spout at the bottom of the vat, gushing into a catch basin below. It is foaming, pinkish red, and alive. This first run of juice, the mustum lixivium, is the sweetest. It flows freely from the weight of the treaders alone. It will make the finest, most delicate wine. But the Romans were efficient. They did not stop at treading. When the grapes are reduced to a pulp of skins and seeds, the treaders climb out. The pulp, the marc, is shoveled into baskets and built into a neat pile under the great beam of the mechanical press. This is a masterpiece of rustic engineering. A massive tree trunk, hewn into a beam, is hinged at one end. At the other end, a heavy stone weight or a screw mechanism pulls it down. The farmer turns the windlass. The ropes tighten. The beam creaks. It descends slowly, pressing onto the grape pulp. Creak. Drip. Drip. Rush. The pressure squeezes the last drops of essence from the skins. This juice is darker, more tannic, harsher. It is the press wine, the wine of the soldiers and the laborers. The juice is then bucketed into the dolia. These are the gigantic earthenware jars, taller than a man, buried halfway into the floor of the cellar to keep them cool. Now, the magic happens. The chemistry takes over. Within days, the mustum begins to boil, though there is no fire. The wild yeasts on the grape skins wake up and start eating the sugar. The surface of the liquid froths and churns. It hisses. The cellar is filled with a dangerous gas, carbon dioxide. The farmer knows to be careful. He leaves the lids off the jars, covering them only with a wicker mat or a vine leaf to keep the insects out, but allowing the gas to escape. If he sealed them now, the jars would explode like bombs. For the next few weeks, the cellar sings. It is a low, simmering sound, the sound of fermentation. The juice is dying and being reborn as wine. The farmer walks the rows of jars. He listens. He smells. He wipes a rim with a cloth. He is tending to a living thing. Outside, the vineyard is stripped. The vines look ragged, their leaves beginning to turn yellow and crimson. The ground is sticky. The air is cooling down, especially at night. The frantic energy of the harvest dissipates into the slow, chemical patience of the cellar. There is a feeling of abundance. The grain bins are full. The wine jars are bubbling. The pantry is being stocked. The fear of starvation, which always lurks in the back of the ancient mind, recedes for a moment. The evenings are beautiful now. The Roman peace, the Pax Romana, feels real here in the countryside. The farmer sits by the door, scraping the purple stain from his hands. He watches the smoke from the neighbors' fires rising straight up in the still air. He dips a piece of bread into the fresh must, tasting the sweetness of the year. But the year is not over. There is one more great harvest to come. The slow, green harvest. The harvest of the liquid gold. The olive trees are waiting on the hillsides, their fruit slowly turning from green to black. The oil press must be prepared. The silver groves and the trapetums grind. The gold of the wheat is gone. The purple of the grapes is gone. The landscape now is dominated by a different color, silver green. We have moved deep into autumn, into the months of October, November, and even December. The sun is low, casting long shadows that stretch across the valleys by mid-afternoon. The air is crisp, carrying the scent of wood smoke and damp earth. It is time for the olive harvest. The olive tree is not like the vine. The vine is frantic, growing wild and fast, demanding attention. The olive tree is a stoic. It stands still, its trunk twisted and gnarled by centuries of wind and weather, looking like a statue carved from rock. It is patient. And now, its fruit hangs heavy, small oval beads turning from a bright, bitter green to a bruised, oily black. The workers head out to the groves. It is colder now. They wear tunics with long sleeves and perhaps leggings wrapped around their shins. Their breath mists in the morning air. There are two ways to harvest an olive, and the Roman farmer knows the difference well. For the finest oil, the green oil destined for the tables of the rich, The fruit must be picked by hand. This is slow work. Ladders are leaned against the sturdy trunks. Men and women climb up, disappearing into the silver canopy. They pluck the olives one by one, dropping them into pouches tied around their waists. But for the bulk of the harvest, for the oil that will burn in lamps and season the stews of the legions, a more forceful method is used. The workers take up long, flexible poles made of ash wood. They strike the branches. Thwack, thwack, thwack. It is a rhythmic, percussive sound that rings through the valley. It sounds like heavy rain. The olives rain down onto the sheets of canvas or woven reed mats spread on the ground below. It is a harvest of falling hail. The workers below, often children or the elderly, crawl on their hands and knees, gathering the fallen fruit into baskets. Their fingers are stained dark with the oil and juice. The gathered olives are not left to sit. If they ferment, the oil will be rancid. They are carted immediately to the press room. But this is not the same equipment used for the wine. The olive requires a different kind of violence to yield its treasure. Enter the trapetum. This is a machine of brilliant simplicity and specific geometry. Imagine a large stone bowl, the mortarium, holding a central column. On this column rests a wooden yoke that holds two hemispherical stones, the orbis. These heavy stones hang suspended. They can rotate, but they do not touch the bottom of the bowl. There is a gap of exactly 1 finger's width. Why? Because the Roman farmer knows that the olive pit contains a bitter seed. If you crush the pit, the oil is ruined. The trapetum is designed to strip the flesh from the pit without breaking the bone. The mules are harnessed to the yoke. They begin to walk in a circle. The stones roll. Rumble, crunch, rumble, crunch. The olives are poured into the bowl. The stones pulp the flesh, turning it into a dark, shiny paste. The sound is lower, deeper than the wine press. It is a grinding bass note. The air in the room is thick and greasy. It smells green, peppery, and rich. It coats the throat. Once the olives are a paste, they are taken to the press. But unlike the loose grape skins, the olive paste is sticky. It must be contained. The workers scoop the paste into fascinas, round, flat baskets woven from hemp or esparto grass. These baskets are stacked one on top of the other, like a tower of pancakes under the press beam. The workers pour hot water over the stack to help the oil flow. Then, the beam is lowered. Squeeze. The liquid that oozes out is not clear. It is a murky, brown sludge. It is a mixture of oil, vegetable water, the amurca, and tiny bits of pulp. It flows into a settling tank. Now comes the separation. Oil is lighter than water. The farmer watches the tank. Slowly, magically, the golden oil rises to the top, floating on the dark, bitter water below. With a shallow ladle, often a seashell, or a wooden skimmer, the farmer carefully skims off the oil. This is the moment of truth. He pours the golden liquid into a clean jar. It is opaque, glowing with a greenish-yellow light. This substance is everything to the Roman world. It is their butter. They cook everything in it. It is their soap. They rub it on their bodies at the baths and scrape it off to clean their skin. It is their light. It fuels the millions of tiny clay lamps that hold back the darkness of the night. It is their medicine, used to soothe wounds and aches. The waste product, the dark, watery amurca, is drained away. But even this is not wasted. As we saw before, it is used as a pesticide, a weed killer, a sealant for threshing floors, and even a lubricant for axles. The olive gives everything. The harvest continues for weeks. The days grow shorter. The rains of winter begin to return, turning the dust of the roads back into mud. The workers come in from the groves wet and cold. their hands numb. But the warmth of the press room, the smell of the fresh oil, and the promise of a hot meal keep them going. By the time the last tree is stripped, the year is dying. December has arrived. The Saturnalia is approaching, the great festival of overturning, of lights and gifts. The farmer stands in his storehouse. He looks at the rows of dolia. The grain jars are sealed. The wine jars are bubbling quietly. And now the oil jars are full of thick green gold. He takes a small clay lamp. He dips a wick of flax into the new oil. He strikes a spark from flint and steel. The flame catches. It burns clear and bright, smelling faintly of the orchard. He holds the lamp up. The light pushes back the shadows of the warehouse. He has captured the sun of the summer in the grain, the spirit of the earth in the wine, and the light of the year in the oil. The triad is complete. The Mediterranean diet, bread, wine, and oil, is secured. The farm can survive the dark, but the work of the farmer is a circle. Even as the harvest ends, the preparation for the new year begins. The earth must be fed. The tools must be cleaned. The accounts must be balanced. And the people, the hands that did the work, must be cared for. In the next part, we will leave the fields for a moment and look at the domestic life of the farm, the kitchen, the food, and the nightly routine that restores the weary worker. The smoky hearth and the daily bread. The door of the farmhouse closes with a heavy thud, shutting out the cold December wind. We are inside now. The air here is different. It is thick, warm, and hazy with wood smoke. We have entered the colina, the kitchen. In a wealthy senator's house in Rome, the kitchen is a hidden, cramped place for slaves. But here, in the Villa Rustica, it is the living heart of the home. It is the room where life happens. In the center of the room, or perhaps against a wall, lies the focus. This is the hearth. It is a raised masonry platform, blackened by years of use. On it, a fire burns. For the Roman family, this fire is more than just a tool for cooking. It is a sacred presence. It is the altar of Vesta, the goddess of the hearth. To let the fire go out is bad luck. It is the eye of the house that never sleeps. There is no chimney in the modern sense. The smoke rises and pools against the ceiling, escaping slowly through vents in the roof or high windows. The rafters are stained shiny black with soot. The smell is intense. It is the smell of burning oak, of rendering pork fat, of garlic, and of toasted grain. It is a smell that means safety. Listen to the sound of the kitchen. Beneath the crackle of the fire, there is a rhythmic, grinding noise. Grind, scrape, grind, scrape. A woman or a household slave is sitting on the floor, working the mola. This is the hand mill. It consists of 2 round stones. The top stone is turned by a wooden handle, rotating over the stationary bottom stone. Grain, the emmer wheat we harvested in July, is poured into the hole in the top. As the stone turns, the grain is crushed into coarse flour, spilling out of the sides. This is the daily rhythm. Bread is not bought. It is made. Every single day. The diet of the Roman farmer is simple, but it is not poor. It is the Mediterranean triad we have gathered: grain, oil, wine, supplemented by the garden. Tonight, the main dish is pulse. This is not a fancy banquet dish. It is a thick, hearty porridge made from emmer wheat or spelt. It bubbles in a cauldron suspended over the fire on an iron tripod. The pot is made of bronze or earthenware. The porridge is grayish-brown, dense, and sticky. To the modern palate, plain pulse might seem bland, but the Roman cook knows how to dress it. Into the pot go chopped onions, carrots from the garden, and a handful of aromatic herbs: rosemary, sage, and thyme hanging in dried bundles from the ceiling. A generous glug of the fresh green olive oil is stirred in, making the porridge glossy and rich. If it is a good day, a piece of salt pork or bacon is added for flavor. But there is also bread. On the side of the hearth, the embers are raked aside to clear a hot space on the brickwork. A round loaf of dough, made from the fresh flour, water, and a pinch of salt, is placed directly on the hot bricks. The cook covers the dough with a testum. This is a domed earthenware lid, like a heavy clay bowl. Hot coals are heaped over the top of the lid. The bread is now completely surrounded by heat. It bakes inside its own miniature oven. After a while, the smell of baking bread cuts through the smoke. It is a sweet, yeasty smell that makes the mouth water. The cook uses tongs to lift the hot lid. Underneath, the loaf has risen. It is golden brown with a hard, crunchy crust and a soft, steaming interior. This is panis. It is substantial. It requires chewing. It is food that sustains a body working in the fields for 12 hours a day. The table is set. In a farm kitchen, the strict segregation of the city often breaks down. The master, the family, and the key household slaves might eat in the same room, if not at the same table. They sit on wooden benches or stools. Reclining on couches is for the wealthy and for holidays. Farmers sit to eat. The food is served in bowls of terra sigillata, the famous bright red pottery of Rome, or simple wooden trenchers. There is cheese, caseus, made from the sheep's milk, pressed in wicker baskets and aged until it is sharp and hard. There are olives, swimming in vinegar, and herbs. There are dried figs and apples for sweetness. And there is wine, but never pure. To drink wine straight is considered barbaric, something only a drunkard or a Gaul would do. The wine is mixed with water in a crater, a mixing bowl. It is young wine, rough and tannic, but the water softens it. It warms the blood and dulls the aches of the day. The atmosphere is quiet. The talking is low. These are tired people. They eat with focus. They use their fingers and their knives. They wipe their plates clean with the last crust of bread. Nothing is wasted. As the meal ends, the kitchen winds down. The scraps are gathered for the dogs or the pigs. The dishes are wiped with sand and water. The fire is banked, covered with ashes to keep the coals alive until morning. The red glow of the embers illuminates the room, casting long, dancing shadows on the walls. On a small shelf near the hearth, there are tiny figurines made of clay or wood. These are the lares and the penates, the household gods. A small piece of bread or a few drops of wine are placed before them. Thank you for the meal. Protect this house tonight. The warmth of the kitchen seeps into the bones. The heavy food sits comfortably in the stomach. The wind outside howls, rattling the shutters, but it cannot reach them here. The kulina is a fortress of warmth. The farmer rubs his eyes. The day began before dawn. The body is heavy. The mind is slow. It is time to leave the fire and find the bed. The agricultural machine needs to recharge. The speaking tools and the ladder of hope. The fire in the kitchen warms the master and his family, but the warmth does not reach everywhere. To understand the Roman farm fully, we must look at the machinery that powers it. And in the ancient world, the machinery is made of flesh and bone. We step out of the main house and cross the courtyard to a separate block of the villa. The Roman writers, brutal in their honesty, classified the equipment of a farm into 3 types: the dumb tools, wagons and plows, the semi-articulate tools, oxen and dogs, and the articulate tools, the instrumentum vocale. The speaking tools, the slaves. This is a hard reality, but tonight we view it not with judgment, but with the quiet observation of history. We are looking at the structure of their lives, the hierarchy that kept the chaos at bay. At the top of this shadow hierarchy stands the villicus. He is the overseer. He is a slave himself, but he is a man of immense power within the boundaries of the estate. He is the right hand of the master. You can spot him by the ring of heavy iron keys hanging from his belt. Keys to the granary, keys to the wine cellar, keys to the tool shed. The villicus is the first to rise and the last to sleep. His life is a constant calculation. He does not plow the field himself. He manages the energy of others. He decides who goes to the vineyard and who goes to the mill. He is responsible for the health of the animals and the repair of the walls. If the harvest fails, the blame falls on him. If the tools are broken, the punishment falls on him. He carries the weight of the entire farm on his shoulders. Beside him is the villica, his female counterpart, often his wife. She manages the domestic sphere, the kitchen, the weaving, the sick bay, the poultry yard. Together, they are the father and mother of this captive village. Below them is the workforce. They are a mix of people, men born on the estate, Vernae, prisoners of war from the frontiers of Germany or Thrace, and debtors working off their bonds. They sleep in the ergastulum, or in small cells, cellae, near the animals. Let us look into one of these rooms. It is simple, almost monastic. A straw mattress on a masonry ledge, a rough wool blanket, a niche in the wall for a small lamp or a personal trinket. It is not a place of luxury, but for the prudent farmer, it is a place of necessary rest. A tired slave is a dangerous slave. He breaks tools. He injures the oxen. So, the smart master ensures the barracks are dry and valid. The life of the farm slave is defined by the dimensum, the ration. There is no menu anxiety here. The food is predictable. A set amount of grain per month, a measure of wine, a splash of oil. It is weighed out by the villicus. On feast days, like the Saturnalia or the Compitalia, the rations are increased. More meat, better wine. These days are bright spots in a gray calendar, anticipated for months. But even in this system of total control, there is a mechanism of hope. It is called the peculium. Imagine a small earthenware jar hidden at the back of a slave's cell, perhaps buried under the dirt floor. Inside are a few copper coins. This is the peculium. By law, everything a slave produces belongs to the master, but by custom, a slave was often allowed to keep small tips, or to sell the produce of a small garden patch, or to hire themselves out on holidays. This jar is the most important object in the room. It is the future. If the slave can save enough coin, he can buy his freedom. It might take 10 years. It might take 20. But the possibility exists. This hope is the fuel that keeps the speaking tool functioning. It turns the labor from a meaningless punishment into a long, slow climb toward humanity. The social life of the farm happens in the evenings. Though they are property in the eyes of the law, in the eyes of each other, they are people. They form friendships. They quarrel. They tell stories of their homelands. They gamble with dice made of sheep knucklebones. They worship. Every farm has a shrine, often near the kitchen or the entrance. Here, the slaves worship the lares, the spirits of the place. They pray for the health of the master, not necessarily out of love, but because the master's health is their security. If the master dies, the estate might be sold, the families split up, the peculium jars lost. Stability is the only safety they know. The hierarchy is strict. The plowman looks down on the ditch digger. The shepherd who roams the hills feels superior to the stable hand. The house slaves, with their cleaner tunics and softer hands, are often resented by the field hands. It is a microcosm of Rome itself, a ladder where everyone is looking at the person above them and the person below them. As night settles fully over the estate, the villicus makes his final rounds. He checks the locks, he counts the tools, he listens to the breathing of the cattle. He walks past the slave quarters. All is quiet. The exhaustion of the harvest, the pruning, or the digging has done its work. The farm is a living organism, and like any organism, it has parts that think and parts that move. Tonight, the moving parts are at rest. The invisible hands that built the Colosseum and fed the legions are still. They are dreaming, perhaps of a heavy jar of coins, or perhaps just of the sun rising on a day of rest. The system is harsh, yes, but here, in the quiet of the countryside, it has a rhythm, a predictability that allows life to endure. The machine sleeps, but it is ready to turn again at dawn. The velvet dark and the iron collar. The lamp in the kitchen has flickered out. The embers in the hearth have dimmed to a dull, pulsing red, buried under gray ash. The Villa Rustica is swallowed by the night. We modern people have forgotten what night truly is. For us, night is just a dimmer version of day, pushed back by streetlights and screens. But for the Roman farmer, night is an absolute. It is a physical weight. It is the nox, a primordial force that reclaims the world the moment the sun, God, Sol, dips below the horizon. Outside the thick walls of the farmhouse, the darkness is total. It is a velvet curtain drawn tight. If you were to step out now, you would see nothing but the faint outline of the cypress trees against the stars. The silence is profound, yet the night is not empty. It is alive with a different kind of life. And because it is alive, it requires a guardian. Enter the Canis Villaticus, the farm dog. He is not a pet. He does not sleep at the foot of the bed. He is a worker, just like the ox and the mule, but his work is not to pull or to carry. His work is to perceive. He is the eyes that see in the dark and the ears that hear the silence. The Roman writers, like Columella, were very specific about what a farm dog should look like. He should be massive. He should have a large head, drooping ears, and deep, terrifying eyes. Most importantly, he should be black. Why? So that in the day he looks imposing, and at night he is invisible. He is a shadow within the shadow, able to approach a thief unseen until it is too late. This is the ancestor of the mastiff, the Molossian hound, a beast of muscle and loyalty. He lies now near the main gate, or perhaps in the doorway of the barn. He seems asleep. His heavy paws are crossed. His breathing is slow and rhythmic. But he is not sleeping like the humans sleep. His senses are wide open. Around his thick, muscular neck, he wears a piece of armor. It is the mellum, a heavy leather collar studded with sharp iron spikes. This is not for decoration. This is for survival. If a wolf attacks, it goes for the throat. The mellum turns the dog's most vulnerable point into a weapon. It is a grim reminder that the quiet frontier is still a frontier, and the wilderness is always waiting to test the fence. Let us listen to the night through his ears. The wind shifts in the olive grove. Rustle. Is it a badger? A fox? The dog's ear twitches. He processes the sound. It is light, scurrying. It is not a threat. He remains still. A deeper sound echoes from the distant hills. A howl. It is high, lonely, and chilling. Lupus, the wolf, the ancient enemy of the flock. In Roman mythology, the wolf is the nurse of Romulus and Remus, a symbol of Rome itself. But for the farmer, the wolf is a thief. The dog lifts his head. A low rumble starts in his chest. It is a growl that is felt more than heard. He is sending a message into the dark. I am here. Do not come closer. The howl fades. The boundary holds. The dog stands up. He needs to walk. He pads silently across the beaten earth of the courtyard. His claws click faintly on the stones. He checks the sheep pen. The sheep are huddled together, a mass of wool and warmth. They smell the dog and settle down. They know the guardian is on patrol. He moves to the granary. The mice are active, squeaking in the walls. He ignores them. The cats will deal with them. His concern is the two-legged predator, the thief, the brigand. The Roman countryside was generally peaceful during the Pax Romana, but it was never perfectly safe. There were always desperate men on the roads. A farm with full granaries and jars of oil was a tempting target. The dog stops at the gate. He presses his nose to the gap in the wood. He inhales the night air. He reads the wind like a book. He smells the damp earth, the pine resin, the distant smoke of a charcoal burner's fire, and something else, a human scent, sweat and old leather. He stiffens. The hair on his back, the hackles, stands up. He lets out a bark. It is not a playful yap. It is a thunderclap, deep, booming, resonant. It is a sound designed to wake the dead. Woof, woof. Inside the house, the master stirs in his sleep. He hears the bark. He does not panic. He listens. Is the dog continuing? Is it a frantic attack? No. The barking stops. The scent has moved on. The thief, hearing the beast, has decided that this farm is not worth the risk. He fades back into the shadows. The master rolls over and goes back to sleep. He sleeps deeply because he knows the dog is awake. This is the ancient contract. The human provides the food and the shelter. The dog provides the safety. The dog sits by the gate for a while longer. He looks up at the sky. The stars are brilliant diamonds scattered on black silk. He sees the hunter, Orion, striding across the heavens with his own celestial dogs, Canis Major and Canis Minor. The universe above mirrors the farm below. There are hunters, and there are guardians. The cold intensifies. It is the deepest part of the night. The intempesta knocks. The frost begins to form on the grass. The dog shivers once, shaking his heavy coat. He returns to his spot near the barn door, where the straw is thick and warm. He circles 3 times, an instinct from the wild days to trample down the grass, and collapses with a heavy sigh. He rests his chin on his paws. His eyes close, but his ears remain swiveled towards the dark. The farm breathes. The house creaks as the temperature drops. The owl hoots from the roof tiles, a soft woo-hoo. The rhythm of the night is slow, dark, and protective. The chaos of the wilderness is kept at bay by a wooden gate, an iron collar, and a loyal heart. We have seen the day, the work, the people, and the night. But the farm is not just an economic unit. It is a family unit. In the next part, we will look at the gentler side of life. We will look at the children, the education, and the future of the farm. We will see how the knowledge is passed from one generation to the next, ensuring that the wheel keeps turning long after the current master is gone. The little shadow and the wax tablet. The sun has risen again. The heavy iron collar of the watchdog is put away, or he is resting in the shade, his duty done. Now, a different kind of energy takes over the farmyard. It is lighter, faster, and higher pitched. It is the sound of the future. In the Roman mind, the farm was not just a factory for food. It was the cradle of the state. It was where the virtues of the republic, hard work, piety, seriousness, were forged. And the raw material for this forge is the child. Watch the master walking out to the vegetable garden. He is not alone. Trotting beside him, trying to match his long stride with 2 or 3 skipping steps, is a small boy. He wears a simple tunic, belted at the waist. Around his neck hangs a leather cord with a round gold or leather pouch, the bulla. This is his amulet, his spiritual shield against the evil eye, until he reaches manhood. This child is the little shadow. For the Roman farmer, education does not happen in a classroom with rows of desks. It happens here, in the mud, in the wind, in the shadow of the parent. The school is the field. The curriculum is survival. The father stops at a row of beans. He leans down. The boy leans down too. The father points to a weed. "This is twitchgrass," he says. "It steals the water." He pulls it out with a firm, twisting motion. The boy mimics him. His small hand grasps a weed. He pulls. It snaps. He frowns. The father smiles, corrects the grip, and guides the small hand to the root. "From the bottom," he whispers. "Always from the bottom." This is the essence of Roman education. Imitatio. Imitation. The child learns by doing. There is no theory without practice. But childhood on the farm is not all work. It is a time of useful play. The children are the guardians of the small things. In the late spring, when the cherry trees are heavy with fruit, the birds descend. It is the job of the children to be the scarecrows. They run through the orchard, waving sticks, shouting, "Hoo, hoo!" They clap 2 pieces of wood together to make a sharp crack. It is a game, yes, but it is a game with a purpose. They feel important. They are defending the harvest. They collect the eggs from the chickens, reaching their small hands into the warm straw nests, careful not to crack the delicate shells. They gather wild blackberries from the hedgerows, staining their mouths purple, tasting the sweetness of the wild earth. And then there are the toys. They are not bought from a store. They are born from the farm itself. A doll made of straw tied with wool yarn. A ball made of inflated pig's bladder. A hoop rolled along the dusty path with a stick. The most popular game is played with nuts. Nooses. Walnuts or hazelnuts gathered in the autumn. The children draw a triangle in the dirt. They stand back and toss their nuts, trying to land them inside the shape or knock another player's nut out. It is a game of skill, of geometry, of strategy. The click-clack of the nuts hitting each other is the sound of Roman playtime. To leave nuts behind became a Roman proverb for growing up. But the mind must be trained as well as the hand. In the afternoon, when the sun is too hot for the fields, the father and son sit on the porch. The father produces a tabula. It is a wooden frame filled with dark, smooth beeswax. He hands the boy a stylus, a pointed instrument made of bone or bronze. "Write," the father says. The boy presses the stylus into the soft wax. Scritch, scritch. He draws a letter, A, then B. If he makes a mistake, he uses the flat end of the stylus to smooth the wax over, erasing the error. This is the origin of the phrase, clean slate. They do not read poetry about myths and monsters. They read practical things. If we have 10 sheep and 2 die, how many are left? If a modius of grain costs 4 sestertii, how much for 2? Math is survival. A farmer who cannot count his yield is a farmer who will be cheated by the merchant. The boy learns to count using calculi, small pebbles moved on a counting board. The click of the stones teaches him the logic of numbers. In the evenings, by the fire, the education shifts to the soul. This is the time for the mos maiorum, the way of the ancestors. The grandfather, if he is still alive, sits in the best chair. He tells stories, not fairy tales, but histories. He speaks of Cincinnatus, the dictator who left his plow to save Rome and then returned to his plow when the job was done. He speaks of Regulus, who kept his word even when it meant death. "We are Romans," the old man says, his voice raspy like dry leaves. "We do not lie. We do not quit. We honor the gods." The child listens. The smoke swirls around him. These stories are the software being loaded into his mind. He is learning what it means to be a man, a citizen, and a farmer. He learns that the land was here before him and will be here after him. He is just the caretaker for the next generation. There is a tenderness here too. The Roman father, often depicted as stern and cold, had a deep affection for his children. To see his son successfully yoke a pair of oxen for the first time, or to see his daughter weave a perfect row of wool, brought a swelling pride to his chest. As the sun sets, the little shadow is tired. His tunic is dirty. His knees are scraped. He has chased birds, pulled weeds, counted pebbles, and listened to heroes. He climbs into his bed. He sleeps the deep, dreamless sleep of the growing. Outside, the fields are dark, but the father looks at the sleeping boy and sees the future. The farm is safe, not just because the barn is full, but because the knowledge of how to fill it has been passed on. The chain remains unbroken, but a farm is not an island. It exists within a wider world. It needs salt. It needs iron. It needs news. In the next part, we will journey out of the farm gate. We will travel down the road to the Nundinai, the market day. We will hear the noise of the town and see how the quiet farmer interacts with the bustle of the empire, the 8-day pulse and the dust of the road. The calendar on the wall of the farmhouse is not just marked with seasons and stars. It is also marked with letters: A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. This is the rhythm of the Roman week, an 8-day cycle. For 7 days, the farmer works in the isolation of his fields, speaking only to his family, his slaves, and his animals. But on the 8th day, the Nundinai, the cycle resets. The farm wakes up with a different purpose today. The plow is left in the shed. The oxen are not yoked to the heavy beam of the tiller, but to the plostrum, the heavy, two-wheeled cart. It is market day. The preparation begins in the dark. The surplus of the farm is loaded. Not the main harvest, that is stored in the great jars, but the small, tradable items. A few baskets of the best apples, polished until they shine. Rounds of sheep's cheese wrapped in leaves. A bundle of fleeces. Perhaps a few clay jars of honey. And if the season is right, a crate of squawking chickens. The master puts on his better tunic. It is still simple, undyed wool, but it is clean. He wears his sturdy boots, the caligae, laced up the shins. He takes a leather pouch and ties it securely to his belt. This is for the coins. They set off. The wooden wheels of the cart are rimmed with iron. As they hit the paved Roman road, the via, they make a distinctive sound. Rumble-clack, rumble-clack. It is a harsh, jarring noise, but to the farmer, it is the sound of commerce. The road is a marvel. It is straight as an arrow, cutting through hills and spanning streams on arched stone bridges. It is the network that binds the empire together. As they get closer to the town, the municipium, or the smaller vicus, the traffic thickens. They are joined by others, neighbors they haven't seen for a week. A shepherd driving a flock of goats, their bells tinkling chaotically. A courier on a sweating horse, galloping past with urgent dispatches from Rome. A detachment of soldiers, marching in step, their armor clinking. The road is the bloodstream of the state, and today, the blood is flowing fast. They reach the town gates. The noise hits them first. After the profound silence of the fields, the town sounds like a riot. Shouting, laughing, barking, the hammering of metal, the crying of babies. They make their way to the Forum or the Macellum, the market square. It is a sensory explosion. Stalls are set up in rows, covered with canvas awnings to keep off the sun. The smell is a complex mix of roasting meat from the street vendors, exotic spices from the east, fish sauce, garum, and unwashed humanity. The farmer finds his spot. He unloads his goods. The transaction begins. In the ancient world, shopping is not a silent act of picking an item and tapping a card. It is a conversation. It is a performance. "This cheese," a customer says, poking the rind. "It is too hard. It is old." "Old?" the farmer replies, feigning insult. "It was pressed last month. It is aged to perfection. The emperor himself does not eat cheese this good." They haggle. It is expected. They discuss the weather, the harvest, the gods. Finally, a price is agreed upon. Coins change hands. The farmer holds the coin up to the sunlight. It is a denarius, a silver coin. He looks at the face stamped on it. Perhaps it is the stern profile of Trajan or the bearded face of Hadrian. This small piece of metal is the farmer's only real connection to the ruler of the world. He tests the weight. It feels good. He drops it into his pouch. Clink. But the farmer is not just a seller, he is a buyer. The farm provides food, but it cannot provide everything. He goes to the salt merchant. "Sal. Salt is life. Without it, the meat will rot, the cheese will spoil, and the body will cramp." He buys a heavy block of gray salt. He goes to the smith. He needs a new iron tip for his plowshare. He inspects the metal, looking for flaws. Iron is expensive. It must last. Then he indulges in a small luxury. He visits the tunzer, the barber. The barber's shop is a hub of gossip. The farmer sits on a low stool. There is no soothing shaving cream here. The barber uses water and a bronze razor. It is a rough experience. The razor scrapes across the skin. The farmer winces. But to be clean-shaven is to be Roman. It separates him from the barbarians. While the barber works, he talks. "Did you hear? The legion in the north has moved. They say the price of oil in Rome has dropped. A two-headed calf was born in the next valley. A bad omen." The farmer listens. This is his internet. This is his news feed. He absorbs the rumors of the world to take back to his silent hills. By mid-afternoon, the business is done. The cart is lighter now, empty of produce, but carrying the precious salt, the iron, and perhaps a small toy for the child or a ribbon for the wife. The pouch at his belt is heavier. The sun begins to dip. The market starts to pack up. The energy fades. The farmer climbs back onto the cart. He is tired. The noise of the town, which was exciting in the morning, is now exhausting. He longs for the quiet. The journey home is slower. The oxen are tired. The road stretches out, bathed in the orange light of the setting sun. As they leave the town behind, the silence returns. The shouting fades. The smell of the city is replaced by the smell of pine and dust. He reaches the boundary stone of his own land as the first stars appear. He feels a physical wave of relief. The town is necessary, but the farm is home. He unyokes the oxen. He walks into the kitchen. The fire is burning. He places the block of salt on the table. It is a trophy of the day. He sits down. His ears are still ringing with the noise of the market, but the rhythm of the farm is already taking over again. The animals need feeding. The door must be barred. The cycle continues. We have seen the full circle now. The seasons, the tools, the crops, the animals, the people, and the trade. The life of the Roman farmer is a complete world, self-contained and eternal. In our final chapter, we will look at the end of the story. We will look at how the Roman farmer viewed his own mortality, the legacy he left behind, and why this simple, grueling life was considered the moral ideal of a civilization that conquered the world, the old roots and the eternal field. The wheel of the year has turned completely. We have seen the frost of January, the blossoms of April, the golden heat of July, and the purple harvest of October. Now, the shadows lengthen one last time. The farmer is old now. His skin is like parchment, tanned dark by 70 summers under the Italian sun. His hands, resting on his knees as he sits on the porch, are gnarled and twisted, looking very much like the roots of the ancient olive trees he tends. They are hands that have shaped the earth, and in turn, the earth has shaped them. He watches the figure of a younger man walking in the distance, inspecting the vines. It is his son. The little shadow has grown. The lesson has been learned. The tablet has been written upon. The chain is secure. For the Roman, mortality was not a terror to be hidden away in a sterile hospital room. It was a fact of nature, as inevitable as the setting sun or the falling leaves. The farmer knows that he is not the owner of this land. He is merely its temporary custodian. The land was here before the city of Rome was built, and it will be here long after the columns of the Forum have crumbled into dust. He looks at the cupboard in the atrium of the house. Inside, the doors are open. There, staring back at him, are the imagines, the wax masks of his ancestors, his father, his grandfather, his great-grandfather. They watch him with hollow eyes. They are the silent jury of his life. Has he kept the boundaries? Yes. Has he improved the soil? Yes. Has he honored the gods? Yes. He can join them with a clear conscience. He has lived according to the mos maiorum. He has been a vir bonus, a good man. In the Roman definition, a good man was, almost by default, a good farmer. When the end comes, it is quiet. The family gathers. The last breath is caught with a kiss. The coin is placed in the mouth to pay the ferryman. The funeral procession moves not to a hidden cemetery, but to the road. The Romans buried their dead along the vias, the highways leading out of the towns. This seems strange to us, but for them it was a way to keep the dead among the living. Imagine the tombstone. It is simple, cut from the local travertine stone. The inscription is short. It does not speak of abstract love or poetry. It speaks of duty. Hic situs est. Here lies Agricola bonus, a good farmer. Paterfamilias, head of the household. Some epitaphs speak directly to the traveler passing by on the road. Stop, traveler, and look, they say. As you are, I was. As I am, you will be. It is not a threat. It is a reminder of the shared harvest of life. But the most profound legacy of the Roman farmer is not the stone. It is the ideal. Throughout the history of the empire, even when Rome became a city of 1 million people, choking on smoke and luxury, they looked back to this simple life with a desperate longing. The poets Virgil and Horace wrote beautiful verses glorifying the countryside. The politicians pretended to be simple farmers. Why? Because they believed that the farm was the source of moral strength. The city bred corruption, noise, and greed. The farm bred patience, resilience, and reality. The Roman Empire was built on the back of the legionary, but the legionary was built on the back of the farmer. The discipline required to stand in a shield wall against the barbarians was the same discipline required to prune a vine or plow a straight furrow. It was the ability to endure, to work, and to wait. As we stand here now, looking out over the imaginary landscape we have built together, the view is peaceful. The Villa Rustica is settling down for the night. The smoke rises from the hearth where the new generation is baking bread. The dog is on patrol. The sheep are safe. The noise of history, the battles, the emperors, the assassinations, fades away. What remains is the sound of the wind in the wheat. What remains is the smell of the rain on dry dust. What remains is the silent, holy dignity of producing life from the soil. This is the quiet frontier. It is the place where the wilderness is tamed not by swords, but by the plow. It is a place of deep, exhausted sleep. So let us leave them there. Let the farmer rest in his tomb by the road. Let the sun tend the fire. Let the seasons turn. Thank you for walking these fields with me. Thank you for enduring the heat and the cold, the dust and the mud. We have traveled back in time to look at the quiet frontier skills that helped people survive the wilderness in that time. The journey is done. The harvest is in. The granary is full. So if you are still awake, close your eyes now. Let the rhythm of the threshing floor, the crunch, 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 fade into a heartbeat. Let the golden light of the Italian sunset turn into the soft dark of your own room. You have done enough today. Like the Roman farmer, you have earned your rest. Sleep, sleep, sleep. Good night. If this journey through the duller side of history helped you unwind and maybe even drift off, please let me know. First, hit that like button if you enjoyed this historical lullaby. Second, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss future installments of history too boring to keep you awake. Finally, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below about which historical topic you find so mundane. It deserves to be our next sleepy video. Your suggestions will shape our journey into the world's most delightfully dull past.